Hey everyone! So today I am super excited to be talking to you guys because I get to discuss Dreams of Gods and Monsters by Laini Taylor. And for those of you who don't know about this book, it is in a series. It's 3 books. The first one is Daughter of Smoke and Bone, and the second one is Days of Blood and Starlight, and then the third one is Dreams of Gods and Monsters. And it's like a really high fantasy trilogy, and the third one, which is beautiful, all of them are beautiful, just came out recently, and look how big it is. And I read that in like 4 days, and that was with school and everything because it was just so good. So good. And they're really hard to describe. The plot line is so hard to describe. So I will put the description of the book that's on the inside cover down below in the description box. I will also put the link to my non-spoilery book review in the description box below, and that also has the description that's inside the cover of the first book in it as well. So you can either read it on my blog or you can read it just down below. And yeah, I give this book 5 out of 5 stars because it was amazing. The whole series is amazing and I love it so much. It's very high fantasy, and I know people who don't like it at all, but then I also know people who love it, like me. So you either love it or you hate it, and I can understand why some people don't like it because it is very high fantasy, and if you don't like that, it's a lot of world building and it's a lot of confusion. The first book you are very confused throughout most of it, and you don't really understand the plot. But then once it unravels and you realize, it's like your mind is blown. Like it's just, I don't get it. It's insane. I didn't see it coming. It was crazy. And the third book was just full of action and full of suspense and full of awesomeness. So if you haven't read any of the series, go pick it up. If you haven't bought Dreams of Gods and Monsters yet, go get it now and read it, and then come back and talk to me because this book is just so good. So good. So if you haven't read it, you might want to leave because you do not want to be spoiled with this series. You seriously will be so upset if you get spoiled because the plot is just so amazing. So if you haven't read it, I would recommend leaving now and then coming back and listening to my thoughts after you read it. For those of you who have read it and want to discuss it with me, I have so much to talk about. I had to take notes during this book because it's so long that I knew I wouldn't remember everything I wanted to talk about, and my notes are literally 2 pages long. Like, they are insane because I wrote down my reaction to everything I had a reaction about, and I had a reaction about everything. So bear with me, and I will try to talk quickly, which I do anyways, but I really want to discuss everything because I just feel like this book was so good. It just deserves to be talked about, and it deserves that recognition. So I understand, like, if you don't want to listen to this spiel, you totally don't have to. Like, I would totally understand if you're like, Katie, this video is like 1 billion minutes long and I don't want to watch it. Then that's totally fine. You can actually go and read my complete thoughts on it on my blog, and that's like way shorter without all the details about the book. So if you'd rather do that, then you can go check that out. But if you want to stay and listen, then that's awesome. And here I go. A couple things that I liked right off the bat. I really like the short chapters because it enabled you to feel like in such a long book, it's really hard to feel like you're making progress. But you honestly felt like you were making progress in that book, even when you only got like 5 pages in, because you were like, oh, I'm on chapter 40, and maybe that was only 200 pages into the book, but still you felt like you were making progress, and I really liked that. And then I also like how the time goes by the number of hours since the arrival of the angels on Earth. Like, it was arrival plus 36 hours, arrival plus this, and every so often it kind of like blanked. It was a blank page, and that's what you saw. Another thing I really like, and I like this in all of the books, was the pages where it had the feather and it said like once upon a time blah 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 blah. Like here, I'll give you an example. They're just so beautiful. This one says, once upon a time an angel and a devil pressed their hands to their hearts and started the apocalypse. And I just think that these, like, the quotes were so awesome. And obviously they describe what's going to happen in that section, but in such a creative way. I would have never thought to do that. Not just, like, do, like, a section title and, ooh, the apocalypse. Like, that's stupid and it's overdone. But this was so creative. And throughout all 3 of the books, I really enjoyed that. I always, like, at the beginning of the book, I would flip through and look at all the feathered pages just to read those quotes, because they're just really freaking cool. Another thing that was kind of weird was I had to become re-immersed in this world, because I didn't reread the books because I did not have time to reread them, and I read them so long ago that it's not something you can lose. Like, you can't lose the knowledge of that world. It's just so complex that you spend all the time learning it, it's going to stick in your brain. But I just had to re-immerse myself. I found myself in the beginning questioning who characters were, not main characters like Karou and Akiva, obviously, but Ziri at first. I was like, oh yeah, that's Ziri. Like, I had to remember that he was the Kieran that was killed, and now he was the White Wolf. I had to remember that. Like, that was a huge part in the second book, that he became the White Wolf, but I didn't remember that in the third one. Like, in the beginning of the third one, I didn't remember that at all. We can get right into, like, the plot now. It started with Eliza, and I was really confused. I did not know who she was at all. But it was so cool how, I love that about Laini Taylor. Like, some people don't like the last perspective and how she leaves you confused until the very end, but I actually really like it. It leaves you so intrigued. And the way you find out that Eliza's like some crazy angel that just, it was insane. And the way you find that out and how she like just suppressed it within herself, it was just so crazy. The angel invasion was really cool as well, but I just hate like the angels. I just like you learn to hate them. So JL and all his minions just annoyed me so much. Literally, I was so mad. Reading from his perspective, and like, I mean, not his perspective, but his storyline, because I was always so annoyed with him. But then at first, Zeus and Mick are not with Karou in the like castle thingy. I don't know what it's called, but they left and they went back. But then she goes back to Karou to tell her about the angel invasion, and it's just so cute because she's finally back, and I just loved it. And then they talk more about resurrection, and I think resurrection is really cool as well. Like, the whole idea of just putting a spirit in another body, but the spirit is still there, that's just, I don't know, it's just so cool. And every time she did it, I want to know more about that. Like, I know it's a fictional thing, but I would love to like be able to research that, which I guess the only way you could research that was to pick at Laini Taylor's brain, but I mean, I would love to do that. So Ziri as Thiago was totally badass. Like, he tricked everyone, and it was hilarious, because as much as I felt bad for Ziri that he had to like act like a total douche all the time, because that's how the White Wolf was, I was so happy with how he did it, because he was just noble, but he like encompassed everything Thiago was, but he was also very noble, and I just loved it, and he was totally badass. And when he allied with the Misbegotten, I was like, whoa, and I was so surprised that they agreed to it. But then they almost started killing each other in the caves, and then I was like, oh, well, I guess it wasn't such a good idea. But then Akiva releases this like peace among them to make them stop and forget they were even fighting. It was super weird, but it was super cool and insane. That's what I'm talking about. Everything in Laini Taylor's world is so creative and so well developed. It's so crazy how she can just make up this entirely new world that we have no knowledge of, we have no experience with, and immerse you in it, and you can feel like you know it like the back of your hand. And then you find out about these animals called storm hunters, and they're like these giant bird things, and those were really cool. And at the end, when Susanna and Mick ride in on it, it's so cute. Like, Susanna's adorable. I love her. Throughout the whole series, I just feel like she has such a beautiful way of describing things. Like, she describes the storm hunters as a reminder that not everything in this world was defined by everlasting war, and I just think that's like so cool. It gives you a very unique picture in your head, like these just elegant and majestic creatures, and when you look at them you can't imagine a world where that's so cruel. And I really like her descriptions. And then when you find out that Akiva is half Stelian, I don't know, it was just so weird, and it was another confusing aspect, but at the same time it was like my mind was blown, and it was crazy. So at some point we have to discuss Karou and Akiva, because they are just the cutest couple and I love them so much, and I don't care how high fantasy this book is, they will forever be one of the best epic romances. And in the beginning of the book, I was so frustrated because Akiva wouldn't talk to Karou at all, and it made me so sad. But just like the fact that they're lovers in not just two different worlds, but in two different like bodies and two different time periods, that's just so insane. It's not even like time, like love across time or love across a world or love across the body. It's all three, and that's just the craziest, most amazing epic love ever. Like, I love it so much. I love them so much. Both of them are perfect for each other, and they are one of my OTPs. Even though they're not like a popular OTP, they are one of mine. Another thing that I really liked in this book was getting to know Laraz, Akiva's sister, because throughout the other books you kind of think she's just a bitch and you don't understand her motives for anything, and even in the beginning of the third book you just think she's a bitch and you don't understand why she's so rude and why she is not nice to anyone, but you kind of get inside her head and she's kind of just very guarded. And her and Ziri were literally the most adorable couple ever. It was the one critique I would have to say about that is I didn't really get how they fell in love so quick, but I guess they just opened up to each other and they were very vulnerable with each other, and that can a lot of times, even in real life, open up doorways to feelings that you didn't know you had. And I really liked it. They were really cute and they were really good for each other, and the fact that Ziri found love after he was convinced that he wasn't going to because Karou didn't love him, it was just really cute. And all the love in this just made me so happy, and I would literally awe out loud because they were so cute. So, like, one of the more specific things that I thought was really crazy was Karou was talking about how she had to draw her concept of war for one of her art classes, and the way she just like drew her concept of war was just so weird but so cool, where she said she had drawn two monstrous men facing each other across a table and in front of an enormous bowl of people with breathing limbs, and then the men were digging in with their forks into each other's bowls, and then they're biting like they were eating the people, but like each other's people. It was just so weird but so accurate. Like, war just leads to death, and unnecessary death, and I just really liked that concept of war, and I think that it was just a very interesting way to describe it, and another example of how Laini Taylor just has like the most amazing and craziest descriptions and quotes, and I will never not love her quotes and the way she describes things. It's so unique, and I've yet to find anything like it in another book. The Chimera and the misbegotten kind of ally, but it's hard for them because the Chimera, you can use their hamzas like on their hand against the misbegotten, and it's kind of like a issue of trust. The misbegotten can't fully trust them because they have something against them. So Karou and Akiva come up with like an anti-hamzas mark, and it was like insane. I when they came up with it, I was like, you could do that? That, like, it was such a simple fix, but it like did so much good, because then the misbegotten could finally really trust the Chimera, and vice versa. They had to trust each other, and I really liked it. And throughout the book, as they start to trust each other more, it was just really nice, because you just see them coming together, and in the end, when they come together and JL doesn't expect it, and he just sees the misbegotten and the Chimera together, and he totally doesn't expect it, it was just like a slap in the face to him, and I was laughing so hard, because I was like, ha, they beat you. Like, okay, the end was pretty damn epic. How they came and took over his camp, so when JL came back, it was all misbegotten that were in his camp, and Laraz was sitting in his office waiting for him. That was just like the funniest thing and the biggest epic win ever. But then the next scene is so sad. I literally cried when Karou sees Ziri, well, it's Thiago's body, but Ziri, like, pinned to the flagpole, and she thinks that Ziri's dead, and Laraz tried to harness his soul in her flask because she didn't have a thurible, and just that whole scene where they're sobbing, and Laraz, like, wants him to be alive so bad. It was just the cutest thing, and it brought up so many emotions. I literally started crying, and I was in school when I read that part, and people were looking at me really weird. And then here's another crazy scene when Akiva was stabbed, but the knife just went through him. I totally still don't understand how that happened. It has something to do with his weird magical powers as being stealing, but I still don't get it. He has so many weird powers that make no sense because he's stealing. Like, he has that weird little place he can go in his head. It reminded me of, if you watch Sherlock and you know Sherlock's Mind Palace, that's what it reminded me of. That was basically what it was, but way more complex and hard to understand. He could also harness that weird magic from the universe, but the magic, when harnessed, destroyed the universe kind of, and like destroyed the like gates between the worlds or something. So weird. When the description about the sky being bruised, the weirdest thing, and I didn't get it. That all of that is so confusing to me. Overall, I just really love the book so much, and I think that if I had to choose favorite characters, it would probably be Susanna and Mick, because they just provided like comic relief throughout the whole book. The whole book was very dark in general because there's war and dying, and Mick and Susanna just provided a reason to laugh. They made you laugh and they made you smile because they're just so cute. Like how Susanna the whole time wanted chocolate cake, and that was all she cared about, was I have to get chocolate cake, and it was just so adorable. When Susanna makes the comment that Akiva's obviously photoshopped, it was just that stuff like that made me giggle, and it made me happy in a book that was like bringing me to tears. It was so sad, and I think that was probably my favorite part, was just like the cute little comic relief in there that made this dark book not so dark. I think I have so much I could talk about. I could literally talk about this book for days, but those are my main points about the book. I absolutely loved it, and Laini Taylor is probably one of the best and most unique authors I've ever encountered. If I had time to reread books, I would definitely reread this series because it's just fabulous. It's amazing. I recommend it to anyone who likes fantasy because it's just amazing. So yeah, if you are interested in having a full-on discussion with me about it, then you can comment, or you can send me a message on Tumblr, and my Tumblr is linked to my blog, so you can see that by clicking on the link down below and then clicking on Tumblr from my blog. So thanks guys, bye!